how the universe works, the spirit behind matter, and the secret of immortality. For thousands of years, the brightest minds of humanity have pursued these questions. Kings risked their empires, philosophers dedicated their lives, and even scientists, while building the modern world, drew their inspiration from it. So, what were they all after? A lost treasure? A secret sect? No, much more than that. They were after a text believed to be a legacy from Atlantis, the sacred key to pre-deluge wisdom, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. This is not just a legend. It's the story of the ultimate knowledge that changed the course of history, driving its pursuers to either wisdom or madness. Alchemists, sages, and even Isaac Newton, considered the father of modern science, sought this lost text. They all dreamed of reaching the ultimate truth hidden within its lines. But are these tablets real? Or are they the greatest hoax in history? And more importantly, how could a text whose very existence cannot be proven become humanity's greatest obsession for thousands of years? Today, we embark on an incredible journey from the sands of ancient Egypt to the incinerated library of Alexandria, from there to the laboratories where modern science was born. Fasten your seatbelts, because the hunt for this sacred knowledge, said to have been saved from the Great Flood, is about to begin. Welcome to History and Mystery. It all begins in ancient Egypt, with a being that even the gods could not fully comprehend, the Great Thoth. In the Egyptian pantheon, while Osiris represented death, Isis motherhood, and Set chaos, Thoth was in a category all his own. He was the god of knowledge, writing, science, and magic. But the most interesting part was his origin. Thoth was not one of the 9 primary gods who existed from the very beginning of Egypt. According to legends, he was created later, or was specially commissioned by the sun god Ra. And what was his mission? To record the messages of the gods and to transmit this divine knowledge, acting as a bridge between the heavens and the earth, between gods and humans. Hold on a second. An intermediary who receives knowledge from the Creator and delivers it to humanity. Does that sound familiar? Yes, that is the very definition of a prophet. Many researchers believe that Thoth, much like Apollonius of Tyana, may have been a sage, a prophet, who was deified over time. First, he was a wise man, then a divine scribe, and finally, a god. But the story doesn't end in Egypt. Thousands of years later, this ibis-headed god of wisdom was reborn in ancient Greece with a new identity, Hermes. His mission was the same, to be the messenger of the gods. But Hermes had a much greater legacy, Hermeticism. Hermeticism is like an esoteric, monotheistic gem hidden within polytheistic religions. It teaches us that everything in the universe comes from a single source, that spirit and matter are intertwined, and that everything is connected. And at the foundation of this entire philosophy lies that famous phrase, said to come from the Emerald Tablets, as above, so below. In other words, man, the microcosm, is a reflection of the universe, the macrocosm. This philosophy would deeply influence not only monotheistic religions but also Western philosophy and even modern science. This knowledge, said to be told by Thoth and Hermes in the legendary tablets, eventually blended with myths and became a legend. But some never gave up the chase. In the 300s BC, a man who brought the world to its knees pursued the greatest treasure in the lands he conquered with his sword, knowledge. Alexander the Great of Macedon, following the teachings of Hermes, dreamed of an empire that would unite the wisdom of the East and West. The heart of this dream would beat in the city that bore his name, Alexandria. And at the center of that city was the greatest wonder of its age, the Library of Alexandria. This was not a mere book depository, but the memory of humanity itself. Tens of thousands of scrolls brought from all corners of the world were reshaping philosophy, mathematics, and physics in the light of Hermetic wisdom. Until that dark day. It was first damaged during the Roman civil wars and later burned by radical groups who declared, "These are pagan knowledge, the devil's invention." Can you imagine? If that knowledge, destroyed by the fire of ignorance and bigotry, were in our hands today, where would our civilization be? A handful of texts saved from those ashes began to spread like a whisper in the Dark Ages, and this whisper found new life in an unexpected place. While Europe was in a slumber of ignorance, scholars in Baghdad and Damascus during the Islamic Golden Age rediscovered these ancient texts, translating them from Greek. We encounter a book written in the 8th century, Kitab Sir al-Khalika, or the Book of the Secret of Creation. The author of the book was a mysterious sage named Balinus, and Balinus wrote in his book, "When I entered the underground tomb, I found the Emerald Tablet in the hands of Hermes. On it was written, 'As above, so below.'" So who was this Balinus? When researchers pursued this name, they encountered a shocking truth. Balinus was none other than the great sage Apollonius of Tyana, whom Rome tried to deify and whose miraculous life was later attributed to Jesus. In other words, the trail of lost Hermetic knowledge led back to one of history's most mysterious figures. Great Islamic scholars like Jabir ibn Hayyan incorporated this Hermetic alchemy and philosophy into their own works. It is even said that the profound Sufi movement in Islam was nourished by this ancient wisdom. And this knowledge, through the Crusades and trade, returned to Europe, preparing to awaken from its 1,000-year sleep. This return would ignite a fire of enlightenment, the Renaissance. And afterward, the foundations of the modern world would be laid. Let's look at the father of modern science, Isaac Newton. Do you know what this genius who discovered gravity dedicated the final years of his life to? Translating alchemical texts and ancient manuscripts. Newton believed in a concept he called Prisca Sapientia, or ancient wisdom. According to him, sages like Thoth, Hermes, and Pythagoras had presented humanity with a universal science from God, but this knowledge had been corrupted over time. Newton saw every discovery he made as an effort to rediscover this lost ancient wisdom. He was not alone. Robert Boyle, the founder of modern chemistry, discovered elements by modernizing the alchemical formulas in Hermetic texts with scientific methods. The giant of psychology, Carl Jung, dedicated his life to deciphering the symbols in alchemy and understood that alchemy was not about turning metal into gold, but the art of transforming the human soul into gold, that is, perfection. Kepler, who calculated the orbits of the planets, wrote himself that he drew his inspiration from the Hermetic teachings of Pythagoras. Even the fathers of quantum physics, Schrödinger and Heisenberg, repeatedly stated how they were inspired by Eastern philosophies and the idea that all is one. In short, the structure we call modern science was built on the shoulders of this ancient philosophy. But as with the pursuit of any sacred knowledge, charlatans and frauds would eventually get involved. Early 20th century, a clever and charismatic man named Maurice Doreal founded a sect in America called the Brotherhood of the White Temple. And what did he tell his followers? That in 1925 he went to Egypt, found the original Emerald Tablets written by the Atlantean priest king Thoth under the Great Pyramid, and translated them. Doreal was not a stupid con man. He had done his history research. He, like us, had made the connection between Thoth, Atlantis, and Egypt. But then, to spice up the story, he added a hidden kingdom of Shambhala in Mount Shasta, his meetings with reptilian races, and a host of other fictional elements. His book, The Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean, sold out, and the man became rich. This is where the greatest danger lies. People like Doreal make so many lies with the truth that everything eventually turns into a muddled soup. And people either say this is all nonsense, and reject a profound philosophy like the Emerald Tablets entirely, or they believe in everything, including the reptilians, without question. Our job is to clear this muddy water and search for the pure truth at the bottom. So, where have we arrived at the end of this journey? We may never know if the Emerald Tablets physically exist or not, but that's not what's important, because the real secret is not hidden in the tablets themselves, but in the philosophy they have carried for thousands of years. Think of alchemy, the greatest symbol of Hermetic wisdom. It wasn't about turning lead into gold. It was the journey of taking the ignorant, raw, and leaden human soul and refining it through knowledge, virtue, and enlightenment into a pure and brilliant state, like gold. The thing that needs to be transformed is not metal, but you yourself. The philosophy of as above, so below doesn't just tell us that we are one with the universe. It also whispers of the potential within us. As great and miraculous as the universe is, the universe within you is just as great and miraculous. Perhaps the greatest mystery of the Emerald Tablets is their reminder that the answers we seek are not in outer space, under the pyramids, or in ancient texts, but within ourselves. When we understand that science and spirituality, matter and spirit, are actually two different faces of a single whole, we begin to look at life with entirely different eyes. Thank you for watching. Be sure to let me know what you think about this topic in the comments. See you in the next mystery. Take care.